Welcome back to Golf Training Hacks. To get those long drives, you need a long backswing, because the longer your backswing is, the more distance you have to impact. The more distance you have to impact, the more time you have to build up speed. The more speed, the more potential energy that goes into the ball, and the further the drive. So a long backswing is important to get those big drives. But for a lot of us, it's tough to get all we can out of our backswing because our shoulders have limited range of motion. This occurs because a lot of us are seated and we're working at our desks, or let's say an auto mechanic working over an engine all day. So your body adapts to habitual positions. So if you're at your desk all day, you're driving, you're working over an engine, maybe you're a truck driver, whatever it is, if you're forward a lot, unlike our kids at school, they're sitting at a desk all day and they're texting all day, your body adapts to positions. So when you're like this, the muscles in the front of your chest get tight, and the muscles in your upper back that are controlling your scapula get stretched and weakened. That combination makes this position tough to get out of. So you should check for yourself to see if you have this position. So look at your posture. See if your shoulders are kind of rolled forward into your midline. Maybe your upper back is curved a little bit, has a little bit too much flexion, and your chin maybe protruded out a little bit too much. Okay, and this is a bit of an exaggeration, but if you're like this and you can't get out of that position, it's going to be tough to get that big backswing. So check this too. If this is you, put your arm out, keep your elbow straight, and see if you can get this kind of movement in your shoulder joint. You want to be able to set your shoulder joint back by moving your scapula down and towards the midline. You want to be able to do this without this kind of rotation. So I'm not rotating to get my shoulder back. My shoulders are square to you, and I'm just working the scapula and resetting that shoulder back into the socket, so to speak. If you're stuck here and you can't get this motion, it's going to be tough to get all you can out of your backswing. So in this video, we're going to give you some techniques to help you reset your shoulder into the right position. But don't forget, there's a lot going on with your shoulder. Your shoulder is basically your scapula, and your scapula rides on your thorax. And your thorax is your ribs and your T-spine. So, if your T-spine is flexed forward, that means your ribs are rocked forward. That means the scapula that's on the ribs is rocked forward. So if that's the case, it's going to be harder to reset your shoulder in the right position, whatever exercise you're doing or whatever techniques you're using, because you may be trying to reset your shoulder back, but your T-spine is still stuck. So in the Golf Training Hack system, we have a lot of exercises and techniques to help you improve the extension in your upper back and your T-spine, so that when you do these shoulder resets, they become more effective. So let's get started resetting your shoulder. So for your shoulder joint to function properly, it needs to be put in the best position it can. Now, for a lot of us who have our shoulders rolled forward to the midline and kind of stuck there, our shoulders are not in the best position. So we're going to use a kettlebell to help reset that shoulder socket back into the right spot. So you can use a dumbbell for this or a kettlebell. I'm going to grab the kettlebell. This leg is bent, this leg is straight. I'm going to press the kettlebell up, and then I'm just going to let the weight of this kettlebell let my shoulders sink back into the mat. And I'm just going to hold it for time. So that's one way to do this. Okay, just let that weight work and let that shoulder sink back to the mat. The other thing you can also do is press and release. Let it sink. Press and release. Remember, for a joint to function well, it has to be put in the right spot, and you can use weight to help you do that for your shoulder. In this video, I'll show you a single arm scapula isolation pull. In this exercise, what you want to do is basically work the scapula without having any other kind of motion. So if I have the weight or the pulley towards you and I'm pulling it this way, I'm not turning my shoulders, I'm not trying to pull it back this way. All I'm doing is using the muscles that control the scapula to pull the scapula to the midline and down. I'm pulling the scapula to the midline and down. So my elbow is straight, my shoulders are square to this area here, and all I'm doing is pulling with the muscles that are controlling the scapula. I'm pulling it to the midline and down, midline and down. So you can do this with a pulley system, or you can do it with a band. So I have a band set up over here. Just wrap my hand around it. Now I'm gonna lean a little forward. I'm bracing with my left arm and left knee because I don't want to have any of this kind of motion. This elbow stays straight. I'm braced, I'm square to the wall, I'm square to the pole, and I'm just gonna pull. I'm letting it extend, and I'm pulling it to the midline and down. Letting it extend, I'm pulling to the midline and down. I'm not bending my elbow, I'm not turning, and I'm not pulling back. Elbow straight, braced, pulling to the midline and down. Pulling to the midline and down. So that's a single arm, isolated movement to help your scapula function better.